I am Sharon John-Philippe, Professor of Urban Forestry.
And I am Lee Rumble, Knox County Extension Agent. And today we're joined very luckily by Petree Arbor Lawn and Landscaping. And this is Brad Petree and April, his wife. We're extremely excited for you guys to be here today. And we'd love to talk just a little bit about residential and community forestry as a whole. I'd like to probably learn first a little bit more about your company and maybe when y'all originated.
Thank you for having us. So Petree Arbor Lawn and Landscape started in 1999, kind of as a afterthought of getting into the industry. We tended to get into the industry like most people. We got into the industry because of the money and the work and so on and so forth. So from that we've grown to a company that services both residential and commercial.
Excellent. Okay. And what's your history in the tree company? I mean, where did you get the thought, I want to run a tree company?
I lost my mind, I think. No. Quick story. I was at my dad's house, standing looking out the back door. He had a large dead southern red oak that loomed over his pool. And he was standing at the sink behind me, and I was like, "Dad, you got to get that tree taken down." And he's like, "Well, I had a guy price it, and it was this much money." And I'm like, "We can do that." And he's like, "Well, get out there and do it." And I'm like, I better consult somebody first. So it kind of started really casually that way, and then having just a little bit of experience with that taught me really quick that I really needed education to do this industry.
And now you are in Louisville, Tennessee, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
But you serve Knox County and some of the surrounding counties outside of Blount County. Is that
Yeah, we
accurate?
went as far as Chattanooga, as far as Bristol, as far as Cookeville, so several counties outside of Knox County.
Excellent, excellent. Okay.
You mentioned, you saw that dead southern red oak and said, wait, hold on, I need to get a little bit more education. What credentials do you hold personally, and then also your company?
Yeah, so we are a certified arborist company. I am a certified arborist. We have other certified arborists on staff, certified master's arborist. We have a CTSP, which is our safety personnel. So I started out going to college at Pellissippi State for business, so to have a business degree, and then at the same time trying to run a small, haphazard at best tree care company. So didn't finish up the college thing and really had to focus my efforts on the business. But we've grown to, I think at the most, at times we've had 18 employees. So. Like the name says, we've been in the lawn care side and the landscaping, so that was more or less an afterthought after a clientele demand. Really, it wasn't something that we were really seeking in the initial part of it, but clients really wanted us to be the one call stop shop kind of company.
And are you getting more calls now than you maybe were 21 years ago about, are you ISA certified or TCIA certified? And can you expand a little bit on what those two acronyms are?
Yeah, so we do get more calls. This is East Tennessee, and the whole Appalachian hillbilly culture is alive and well. And so changing over from that, in the last 21 years we've seen a great push toward are you certified arborist? Do you do this type of work more on the preservation side of trees and our urban canopy, as opposed to, well, do you just remove trees?
Just remove.
So yeah, customers are starting to change over slowly, but being human, we tend to do that. There was a great company that was prior to our company, and in the Knoxville market, he was predominantly the only company. You could have anyone remove a tree, but if you wanted to have true arboriculture done, you called this company. So he did a 40-year uphill trudge to educating the customer, and we've kind of taken the baton and carried that onward.
Excellent.
So we do attend a lot of different educational classes with the TCIA,
Okay.
which is the Tree Care Industry Association.
Excellent.
They usually put on an expo in November.
Yes.
Due to COVID last year, we were
Yeah.
unable to attend, but they did a online version, which was a lot of fun.
Yep.
And then there's also the ISA, which is the International Society of Arboriculture, and then we are members of the Southern chapter.
Yes.
Excellent.
So
Excellent.
we like to enjoy the class or attend the classes. We enjoy meeting new people, and so we just have a good time.
Well, that's great to hear, April. You know, we really do, through Extension, promote those businesses that are more educated and have those credentials, because we know that the residential and community group as a whole is really starting to seek out more of those qualified tree care companies rather than the chuck in a truck, if you will. So that's great to hear. Now, I know in Extension, I get a bunch of calls throughout the day from residential people. I think 2020 was a year of murder hornets and cicadas. And this may be true for you as well, but what's a general day look like, or what does the call volume usually look, or is it quite a bit of preservation work, or?
We get a lot of phone calls from people who have moved into the community that are new from out of state.
Okay.
They don't know what kind of trees they have because they're used to what's in
Yeah,
their
understood.
state. And so we do get quite a bit of calls for asking if there's an arborist on staff, and
Excellent.
obviously we get to say yes.
Excellent.
And so we get to set up an appointment for them to come out and view their trees.
Excellent.
So that's a lot of our call volume.
So, 21 years in the business and still going. What lessons have you learned?
That you should have a proper perspective of what it means to be in business, what it means to deal with the public. I couldn't really say enough about educating yourself in the industry in which you're in. So how good would it be to have an electrician come out to your house and you're like, well, do I need to change this out or do I not? And he says, well, I don't know, let's try it. So in the same way, a lot of people started tree care companies, and a homeowner might ask, is my tree healthy? Well, I really don't know, but I can cut it. And that really would be I would hope to most people would be an unsatisfactory answer.
Right.
Absolutely.
So the educational value that you really should emphasize in this industry, because there's such a plethora of plant structure and it's all different purposes to an individual property or a commercial property, then you should get hopefully the correct answer. And that should come from education.
Totally.
Absolutely. And a lot of that education you mentioned comes from the ISA, TCIA, and the Ag Extension Office. And what about also, y'all are members of the Southern Chapter ISA as well, I believe?
Yep.
So, okay, so you are local members in the group.
And
so
the Tennessee Urban Forestry, I
Okay.
wouldn't leave them out.
Excellent,
They
excellent.
do some
Okay.
heavy lifting sometimes.
All right, so kind of expanding on what Sharon just mentioned, 21 years, that's a long time. So I know you've seen trends change here in the county and surrounding counties, of course. Are there any major trends or challenges that you guys face on a daily basis? I mean, I'm sure there are, but can you expand a little bit on that?
I think one of our largest across the industry, and it seems like it's more here in East Tennessee, but I may be a little biased in that
Okay.
opinion, but at the same time, it's properly educated employees. And so you can get some great motivated people and they lack the education, so it lacks the value on whether you want to hire those people or not. So in working with UT and doing an internship program, these are young people that are career minded.
Yeah.
And they know they want to go into the industry, and that's just kind of a leg up in coming into this. I can remember 15, 18 years ago, it wasn't that way. It was, you talk to Jimmy, Joe, Bob, and you're like, hey, you want a job? And they kind of came into the industry, and some of those people have made great people. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
But the trend is in the industry as a whole has been hey, let's go toward more educated
Excellent.
individuals. Let's go to people that are gearing up to make this a career instead of making this a job.
Excellent.
Right.
And Brad, you know, earlier, this wasn't on video, but he brought up a great quote, you know, I want my employees to work beside me, not for me. And I think that is really a huge benefit of a company, you know, growing everybody up together to really promote the urban canopy as a whole, because, you know, anybody can remove a tree just about, but it takes a little bit of knowledge and background education in order to preserve trees. So.
And it really helps. I hope I'm not doing a shameless plug, but it really helps, honestly, for businesses like ours, because we've got so many other individuals that are in the industry that isn't quite minded this way. But it really helps for, you know, the extension agency, UT, to focus in on the people, the boots on the ground, let's say, and say, hey, how can we help you?
Absolutely.
And that has, honestly, that has probably been one of the biggest catapulting things to our industry to keep us focused and going in the right direction.
Great.
Really, I appreciate
Well,
it.
we're glad to hear
Together.
that. Yeah.
So, Petree Arbor, specifically you, Brad,
Uh-oh.
you've come into a number of my courses
Mhm.
and done guest lecture specifically about career opportunities.
Yeah.
Expound on that.
So, as we were saying previously, we want people to be like-minded. Let me say, as we are, you know, I take real little stock in being the business owner to the thing. It really is just like what Lee said. It's people working beside us that builds a company. It's not the individual building the company.
It's a team effort.
So in being able to come in to like your classes, to talk to the people, because they're just starting out and they may not have 20 years of experience to say, hey, what's the best path? So you can come in and tell them that they may want to go into the plant healthcare side. They may want to go into production side. They may want to go into some part of the business that is, whether it's in the office or whether it's in production or whether it's in sales, and utilize their individual talents in order to make the proper decision. That way when they get into the industry, they don't really have that burnout because they're doing something that they really didn't intend on doing anyway. So it really helps out to give the kids, young people, I should say.
It's okay, we call them kids.
Yeah. I think I've reached that age. But it's good to help them out to have a projecting style of decision making that hopefully leads them to long-term success.
Excellent.
Any final thoughts that you would like to leave?
Not necessarily. Obviously, a big thank you to Brad and April, both of Petree Arbor. We're really glad they came in today and sat down and talked with us. You know, we're really trying to promote the education out to our residential audience, and as an agent, that is what we do. So it's really great to have you, you know, here today. Thank you for the interview, and I think that's it from me.
Great.
Thank you.
Check into tree news you can use from your residential and community forestry work group.